Hi everybody, welcome to another video. So this one is the ANI GF3, which is in 1.2, and we're pitting that up against the Devilbiss DV1s in 1.2 with the S1 cap. Now this, for me, this is, I did a cheapest v most expensive minigun video probably about 2 years ago really, and for me at the time the ANI GF3 was about £30, and I thought it was probably the best value for money reasonable minigun, and by that I mean not a cheap Chinese minigun that you could get. Now the price of it hasn't really changed despite everything going up. It's still about £27-28, something like that, so sub £30, and it's a really good little gun for that sort of money. You know, if people can compare it to 200 quid guns, then no, but it's not 200 quid, it's £27. So we're pitting that up against what is now the most expensive gun, certainly in the UK anyway, the DV1s. The old video I did was against the Sata, which at the time was about £270, 270 GB pounds. I think they've gone up a little bit now, but this thing is, the DV1s is £375 or thereabouts, depending where you get it from. So there's quite a difference in price. So we're talking about something that's 13 times the price of the other gun, maybe even 14 times the price of the other gun. So is one better than the other? Well, yes, of course, one is better than the other. The DV1s is better made than the GF3. The results that it gives are slightly better, and I mean slightly better, although when you see the final footage here, it will be difficult to see the difference, but there is a slight difference. But the main difference is when you use the gun. When you use the DV1s, it does have a really fine atomization, and the pattern is very, very even. If you're, you know, if you've primed something and you go over with your first coat of base coat, there's only clear coat in this gun, but if you go over with your first coat of base coat, you'll see how even the pattern and distribution of the small little droplets that make up the spray area, how even they lay down. Now you don't get that with the GF3, but it's not bad. It's not 12 or 13 times as worse. It's not bad at all. So I always say that if you really can't afford much at all and you've got a compressor, get yourself something like a GF3, because it's better than spray cans. In my opinion, it's much better than spray cans. Gives you much more control, and it also gives you control over your different mixtures for the colours, to allow you different viscosities, which obviously you don't get in a can. There's lots and lots of plus points to having a spray gun rather than a spray can. Obviously the main drawback with a spray gun is that you need a compressor, but if you have got a compressor, get yourself a few cheap filters to filter your air coming through, because that's quite important. The more you can spend on the filter, the better, and get yourself something like a GF3, and you can achieve really, really good results without breaking the bank. If you want to spend a lot of money, and people will be asking, is it worth spending that much more money, or is it worth spending this much more money on a spray gun? The jury's out really. If you can afford it, then the answer is yes. If you can't afford it and loads of other things are going to suffer, then the answer is obviously no, because you'll still get reasonable results with the cheaper gun. But the DV1s, I did a top 12 minigun video, and I'll put a link in the description. I'll also put a link in the description to the video I was talking about earlier, which, as I said, was a couple of years old, and that was the GF3 against the Sata, which was the old cheapest v most expensive. So I'll put a link in the description so that you can see those. But I did a top 12 minigun video, and ironically the GF3 came 12th, so lowest, and I made it a top 12 video rather than a top 10 because I wanted to put the GF3 in there. and I made the DV1s top spot. I give it top spot because I thought it was the best overall, value for money wise, etc. The best gun, because it comes with 2 tips. So when you're paying that price, you are paying for 2 tips. Although with the GF3 you can actually get a complete tip set with a needle, etc. for about 10 GB pounds. Spray Guns Direct seems to have ANI sewn up, particularly, especially in the UK, but I think they send quite a lot of their stuff worldwide. There's also a place in Italy as well that do their stuff, but I tend to get I tend to get all of my ANI stuff from Spray Guns Direct. And you know, they give you a reasonably good service, but there are like a service kit for this gun, which is about £5 or £6. It's not a buy it and throw it away when something goes wrong gun. You know, something major goes and you're going to throw it away, but it's not a lot of money to throw away anyway. The DV1 or DV1s is obviously a much better build quality, and you would expect that anyway. If you're a new painter and you're watching this, because it's got a cheap gun, and you're thinking, should I start off with a cheap gun or should I buy a more expensive gun, then it is worth paying the money if you can for a better gun. Because I think it will give you better results quicker, if that makes sense, because the pattern is more even on something like the DV1s. The pattern is more even, so it will make it easier for you to get very good results, and that in particular applies to clear coat as well. Now a seasoned painter, someone that's used to painting, will be able to get good results with either of these guns, although they will find it still easier to get it with the DV1s. The DV1s is particularly good at smart repairs, which is what it is. It's a smart repair gun, that's what it's sold as. It's particularly good because it's got such a fine spray. When you're doing blending and things like that, so you're doing a small partial repair on a bumper or fender or a door or a wing or something like that, and you don't want to paint the whole panel, you might want to clear the whole panel just to make it look more even, but you don't want to paint, you just want to paint the small surface area and blend it in. It helps because the atomization is so fine, you can feather it out really evenly, and it helps match, particularly things like silvers and some metallics and other colours. It can help give it a more stealth appearance, that you can't see that a localised repair has been done. You would find that harder with the GF3, but there's loads of guns in between. I actually quite like, and I think in 3rd place in my, I think it's 3rd or 4th place in my top 12 miniguns. I put the Devilbiss SRI Pro Light, which is, something like that is a good compromise. It's not half the price of the DV1, but it's probably about 60% of the price, so it's considerably cheaper than the DV1s, and still gives you good results, a better build quality, etc. But if you're thinking about getting spray cans, you're not going to go straight to an SRI Pro Light or SRI, what is it? No, it's actually called Pro Light S now. So exactly the same gun, just blue instead of gold. Anyway, here's the final results. The one on the left is the DV1s, and the one on the right is the ANI GF3. And I think you'll agree that you can get a pretty good finish with the ANI GF3. It lends itself nicely to giving a reasonably good finish, and as I say, it's not very expensive. So certainly try and keep away from the spray cans if you can. There's a pun there, spray cans if you can. If you've got a compressor, it's worth getting something like this, so that it just gives you much more flexibility. I'm not saying, to somebody that can afford a DV1s, buy a GF3 because it's better. It isn't better. The DV1s is better. It's just that there's not a huge gulf that you might think between gulf between the two of them, really. As you can see, everything's done exactly the same. It's only the gun that's different, and I think you'll agree that the results are pretty good. It's a U-pole clear coat, a 2080, so the Devilbiss actually handles that quite well, because it's quite a thicker clear coat normally. Okay guys, thanks for watching.